וואו, זה הצעקות ששמענו. מפנים את הבניין.
The war between Iran and Israel has been going on for about 3 weeks now, and if you thought it was already at its worst, the last 48 hours proved otherwise. What Iran did on March 17th and 18th was a significant escalation, not just in terms of the weapons used, but in terms of the targets chosen and the geographic reach of the attacks. To understand why these 2 days matter, you need a bit of context about how the war has been going up to this point. The conflict started in late February when Israel and the United States launched coordinated strikes inside Iran. Iran did not respond immediately with everything it had. Instead, it began a measured campaign of retaliation, launching ballistic missile strikes at Israel while also activating Hezbollah in Lebanon and coordinating with other allied groups across the region. For weeks, Iran was essentially cycling through older missile stockpiles, weapons that are over a decade old, and its own military spokespeople acknowledged this publicly, making clear that newer and more advanced systems had not yet been brought into the fight. That signal was not lost on anyone paying attention. Then on March 17th, Israel killed 2 of the most senior figures in the Iranian government in a single strike. One was the head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the other was the commander of the Basij, the paramilitary force that functions as the regime's internal enforcement arm. These were not symbolic targets. These were men directly involved in running the war effort on the Iranian side, and their deaths in one night created an immediate shift in how Tehran responded. That same evening, Iran fired cluster missiles at central Israel. This matters because cluster munitions work very differently from a standard ballistic missile. Instead of a single warhead hitting a single point, a cluster missile opens up mid-flight and disperses dozens of smaller submunitions over a wide area. The purpose of this design is partly destructive and partly tactical. Saturating an area makes it significantly harder for air defense systems to intercept everything. The fact that Iran chose this type of weapon, when it had been using older conventional ballistic missiles for weeks, was a clear indication that the escalation was intentional and deliberate. The missiles reached the Tel Aviv area. 2 people were killed in the Ramat Gan neighborhood. Parts of missiles that were intercepted mid-air fell as debris across the city, and some of that debris came down near the Knesset, near the National Library, and at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Old City of Jerusalem. The following morning, on March 18th, the attacks continued. More missiles were launched from Iran toward central Israel.
מכוניות, אנשים! אני לא מאמין. 10 מטר מאיתנו יש פה אוטובוס, עולה באש!
Since the war began, more than 3,500 Israelis have been wounded in various incidents, some from direct strikes, some from the debris that falls after successful interceptions. What made the last 2 days genuinely different, though, was not just what happened inside Israel. It was how far Iran extended its reach outside of it. Dubai Airport, which is one of the most trafficked aviation hubs in the world, temporarily closed its airspace after strikes hit the surrounding area. In Sharjah, just north of Dubai, an industrial zone was struck. In Abu Dhabi, a person was killed by shrapnel from a strike nearby. A tanker was attacked near the port of Fujairah, which sits at the point where the Persian Gulf opens into the Gulf of Oman.
Wow! Motherfucker! He's a bull!
Qatar reported strikes near Doha, And in the days leading up to these 48 hours, Iranian strikes and operations carried out by allied groups had already hit energy infrastructure and civilian targets across Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. Iran also formally declared that American financial institutions and multinational companies operating anywhere in the region were now considered legitimate military targets. On Israel's northern border, Hezbollah launched what was described as 37 separate waves of attacks in a single day, involving rockets, missiles, drones, and anti-tank fire aimed at communities in northern Israel and the Galilee region. A rocket hit a residential neighborhood in the coastal city of Nahariya. Israel responded by pushing ground forces into southern Lebanon, the second time it has done so in under 2 years, but the attacks from the north have continued regardless. None of this is happening in a vacuum where Iran is unaffected. Israeli and American strikes have caused enormous damage inside Iran. Thousands of Iranian civilians have been killed, hospitals and schools have been struck, and the country is under sustained military pressure. But the Iranian government has shown no signs of looking for an exit. Senior Israeli officials reportedly told American diplomats privately that Iran is not cracking and appears willing to keep fighting regardless of the cost. The IRGC, the branch of the military that controls most of the weapons being used in these attacks, has remained operationally functional throughout the campaign. The United States is deeply involved in the fighting. America's most advanced aircraft carrier had to divert to port after a fire broke out during operations in the Red Sea. 13 American soldiers have been confirmed killed. More than a dozen MQ-9 Reaper drones, which are among the most expensive unmanned systems in the U.S. military's inventory, have been destroyed. Some shot down, some caught on the ground by incoming fire. And when Washington asked NATO allies to help patrol and keep the Strait of Hormuz open, almost every European government said no. If you want to stay updated on everything happening in this war, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next update. We'll see you there.